Hey, good afternoon, folks, and welcome to Friday's Market Wrap-Up here at Top Gun Options. I'm Wiz, Matthew Buckley, and just absolute crazy week, man. I think there's maybe an agreement to end the shutdown, so we reopen the government temporarily, or at least parts of the government that are shut down. But here's the biggest travesty of justice. I just, this morning, 25 jackbooted thugs, armed, fully armed, semi-automatic. I mean, Roger Stone, folks. I met Roger Stone. I've had dinner with Roger Stone down the street here. This was literally his house is I don't know, quarter mile away from me, man. Kicking down this guy's door at 6 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't agree more with Alan Dershowitz. He's like, Trump's the target. I mean, this is the FBI, the Department of Justice, deep state, just giving the president a big FU. Still waiting for them to raid about 50 other people's houses, starting with Hillary Clinton. It's an absolute travesty. All animals are equal. Some are more equal than others. If I had done one thing that Hillary Clinton did, that James Comey, who was also using his own email, which the media has buried, if I did one thing as a naval officer, they would have kicked down my door, arrested me, court-martialed me, ruined my life. What are we doing here, folks? What are we doing? This independent counsel thing is absolutely out of control. The man was charged with not one thing related to quote unquote collusion with Russia. It's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. U.S.-China trade war is just accelerating the inevitable. So reports today that the Chinese vice premier is actually coming to the United States next week, and might be good news, might be bad news, don't know. I do know that the PBOC, a little bit of a quiet quantitative easing overnight. Some open market buying driving this a gap higher. They are bending over backwards to save capitalism in China, folks, whatever their version of capitalism is. What happened the last time they did that? Remember this right here, guys? Remember this massive rip your face off rally on the government getting involved in capitalism was followed by a massive implosion in capitalism. Okay, so I got a bear call spread on FXI that's underwater right now. That's a hold right now. This elixir of jumping in and trying to save the markets always ends badly over in China. But we're playing let's make a deal. The president is obviously wanting to make a deal with China. He says he wants it to be in our best interest. But again, I teach my members at Top Gun Options to look where the camera ain't looking, right? Where the focus isn't. I said that last week. The camera's focused on this white kid and an Indian. I'm like, look where the camera's not focused. And then over the next hour or two, it came out that the kid wasn't the aggressor. This Indian fake liar, essentially stolen valor guy comes right up to him, stands inches from his face, beating a drum. And who was the adult in that situation? So now apparently smirking is racist. What did they want this kid to do? Anyway, my point being is this is the bigger deal, folks. Our chief of naval operations a week ago was over in China. The Chinese generals and admirals, folks, are absolutely belligerent. We're going to take back Taiwan. Don't get in our way. We'll sink a couple of your aircraft carriers. This is bad. This is, and the president, to his credit, is sailing ships and flying airplanes right through what they are calling their new essential borders. We don't recognize them, right? China just went in the middle of the Pacific and dropped, dirt on some atolls at low tide and said, hey, this is new China. This is what you need to be looking at, guys. And if we do, or when we get a trade deal, what's the enforcement mechanism? What do we do? Say stop, or stop doing what you're doing, or I'll say stop again. Does anybody actually think that if they sign some agreement that says they're going to stop stealing our intellectual property, or they're going to? One of the reasons China's military is doing so well is what? Us. They've stolen everything. Take a look at what their Joint Strike Fighter looks like. Under President Bill Clinton, we set back our submarine advantage by at least a quarter of a century, 25 years, talking to some of my submarine buddies. This is where you need to be looking, folks, and this is going to come to a head. Okay, we came to a head with the Soviet Union, and thankfully we won at that point, quote unquote. We essentially bankrupted them. Now Putin's back and China's back. Yeah, something's going to happen, guys. Fed. One of the reasons the market's rallying. I guess everybody's just going to ignore Intel's earnings. I'm not even going to talk about Starbucks, but Intel. Holy crap, folks! Down 5%. Remember, don't just look at the Dow, folks. You got to look at the S&P 500. But again, we continue with this mixed earnings period. Earnings were phenomenal back here, and the market imploded. Earnings are mixed, and we're up here. Remember, folks, February is it is the most volatile month of the trading war. What happened last January? Last January, we had a rip-your-face-off rally, and we imploded in February. What's happening right now? We're having a rip-your-face-off rally. We're going to go higher in February? Not going to happen. But this is bullish news. Fed officials weigh earlier than expected end to their bond portfolio runoff. Remember, QE, quantitative easing, was when they flooded the market with liquidity. Remember, at one point under Ben Bernanke, $85 billion a month. What are we doing now? They're trying to get rid of that balance sheet. They took on $5 trillion in debt, man. They got to get rid of that. But what happened? When they said they were going to really start getting rid of that and start raising interest rates, the market had a temper tantrum. So it really looks like the Fed is trying to engineer a soft landing here. I'd like to remind my members that the Fed has never, in the history of the Fed, more or less, had a safe landing. This guy is busting his butt to try and make a soft landing. It could happen, man. Could happen, hasn't happened yet. So good on you. So it was kind of a bumpy week. We had a shortened week. I was up in Pittsburgh on Monday, flew back, and we had kind of a mixed, and it was a bumpy week, right? The algos drove us through the 50-day moving average on the S&P 500. Humans kind of sold that off. We entered kind of a wallowing period here. What's going on, guys? We really are in a holding pattern, waiting for retail and tech earnings. If those are good, all bets are off, man. We're heading higher. If those are mixed to kind of or bad, we're heading into February, and I think we go lower. So as I said, there were reports this morning that the Chinese vice ministers are heading to the U.S. next week for trade talks. One of the things that's been underreported, and I'm going to talk about next week in our live trade briefs, is this. S&P 500 companies, here they come, man. According to J.P. Morgan, they're going to execute $800 billion in buybacks and maybe give up $500 billion more back to folks through dividends. Despite the recent market vol, buyback activity has been very strong during the fourth quarter, and we think it will remain robust. But Intel, man, the data center slowdown hits Intel earlier than expected, making a rough start following a challenging year. This is a canary in the coal mine, folks. Just like I briefed the other day about housing implosion, existing home sales imploded. A lot of mixed macroeconomic data, folks, and it's about to get really, really, really interesting. Has anybody seen this guy? I mean, we've heard from him. He had a really weird rambling around Christmas unicorn letter, and then this. I haven't seen the dude. I haven't seen his executive officer, Sheryl Sandberg, but they have earnings coming up, folks. That's either a really, really good sign that Facebook's going to blow the doors off of earnings, or it's a really, really, really bad sign. We had two bear call spreads on. One of them just got kicked in the teeth today with this pop out of Facebook today. Really not seeing too many reasons why. There was not an op-ed, but a report today that Instagram's kind of really on thestreet.com. Facebook's Instagram is underappreciated by investors, analysts say. I don't agree with that. I advertise on Facebook. I advertise on Instagram. I don't, I'm like the Hair Club for Men. I'm not only a member, I'm the president. I don't think so. The same week, we got reports that WhatsApp is being throttled in its biggest user base in India because it's being used for murders. People are sending out, these mass blasts on WhatsApp. Hey, this guy over in this town, molested a kid, and the dude's dead a week later. Not a week later, an hour later. So I don't know about this, but remember, folks, if a stock's not doing what you think it should be doing, you're wrong, not the stock. But remember, let's take a look at, remember that earnings period? Holy crap. Even Jim Cramer's like, somebody needs to go to jail. They didn't pre-warn how bad their earnings were. And since that time, here we are. The stock is just down. Oops, hang on. Let me go with my straight line here. The stock is absolutely imploded, like I told you. So there's the high, and the stock is down 32% since that earnings miss, and these earnings weren't that good either. So, like I said, haven't seen Mark, haven't seen Cheryl. That's either going to be blowout earnings or it's going to be a blowout miss. So get your popcorn ready. So right now, folks, I'm staying market neutral to slightly bearish. If we hold this 50-day moving average and we get bullish earnings next week, I will be cautiously bullish, but remember, folks, this is a very tactical market. We might have a little bit of a rally today too on news that the government might be reopening or the part that was shut down. We're heading into February. Remember this. Remember this Friday market wrap-up, folks, that I told you. We're heading into February, the most volatile month of the year, and we've had this V-shaped recovery. We had the implosion and the rally, and markets just usually don't do this, and if they do these V-shaped rallies, they definitely retest a low, okay? So I'm hanging out, keep my powder dry. Had a good week of trading. Hopefully you have a great weekend ahead. Happy hunting. Make sure you hedge, and God bless. I'll talk to you for Monday's Market Outlook later.